I'm Andy Mackie with Engage West Midlands and Great Europe Mission, and I'm interviewing Steve Whittington today, who is leading a church plant team here in Aston in Birmingham. So, Steve, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into church planting.
Yeah, well, I became a Christian when I was 13 in Brighton. That's where my accent's from. And at a conference a few years later, both my wife and I, she wasn't my wife at the time, we're in a big church conference where there was a guy from Thailand speaking about church planting. Never really heard about it in the UK. But he talked about the need for new churches to be planted, for the gospel to reach to the ends of the earth. And as we were there, he called for a response to church planting. And my wife-to-be and myself, we both went forward to this meeting saying, yeah, we're up for church planting. And the story was several years later, we felt called to the city of Hull. And my wife and I moved there with our son, he was 6 years of age, to start a church from scratch. And that gave us a real appetite to see the gospel coming, particularly in harder to reach communities. We were praying in London and praying about the nations, about the UK. And somebody had a real burden to pray for the city of Birmingham, where we're sat right now. And as they were praying, prayer began to stir in the room, and faith, what should God be doing in Birmingham? The next morning, we were in London and we came in on the Underground, and the wraparound on the free newspaper, the Metro, was, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And it said, London to Birmingham, 1 hour, 22 minutes, you know, the HS2 train. And so we thought, oh, God's put Birmingham in our faces as we're coming. So we prayed again. So we ended up coming up to Birmingham, and we got the map out of Birmingham. And you suddenly realise not just Birmingham, but how huge the West Midlands is. And we just talked about what God was already doing, where his kingdom was breaking out, but also looking at whole areas of the city and region where there was very little church presence, where maybe churches were declining, where they needed to bring some new support and new life in. And so we got the map out and thought, actually, I think God may be calling us to plant several churches across Birmingham.
So tell us a little bit about the context here in Aston. What's the community like here?
It's a beautiful community. It's quite a diverse community, but primarily Muslim, Bangladeshi primarily. Just right across from us is what we call the Barry Jackson Tower, which houses homeless sort of families from across the city of Birmingham. They're waiting accommodation. Yeah. So they're in temporary accommodation, though, of course, there's such a housing pressure in the city at the moment that they're staying there for a season. So they're families that are really kind of waiting.
And what's your heart, and how are you trying to connect with people?
Yeah, I think primarily we just want to love people and accept them for who they are, where they're coming from, listen to their story, because I think that's really important as a church planter, to really understand the community that you're working into. But of course, part of that story for us is the good news story of Jesus, how Jesus has impacted our lives. And so we want to share that story in a way that's not going to be right in their face, but it's going to come alongside them to have a discussion with people. And part of, as we do that, we want to serve the community. So one of the needs we've found in this particular community that we're working into is, again, food poverty, which is on the increase, rising bills, food costs are going up, pressure on families and singles. So we've set up a food pantry here where people can come on a weekly basis, pay a subscription, and go away with £4.50. They can go away with £20, £30 worth of food. So it's serving the community, but it's also building a friendship and relationship with them on a weekly basis. Christchurch, Birmingham, we're now called. We meet just not far from here, just up the road actually. And one of the first calls I had, we'd moved here, and I got a phone call from somebody in Hull. So we've got somebody who's become a Christian from Iran, and straight away they've found family. They literally live sort of 10 minutes walk from where we're meeting. They just looked up on Google, this other church pastor, where's this church in Perry Bar, Aston, found us. And straight away as a church, from the very beginning of our very church plant, we've had people from different nations with us. So every week in our church community, we sing in different languages. We always sing in English as our primary language currently, but we try and sing a song of another nation. So whether that's Kurdish or whether it's in Farsi, but we're singing in languages of our community as well. We want to sing in Urdu. We're going to sing in Hindi. We haven't got them in our community yet, but we know that they will come into our community. So we want to build a multicultural, multi-ethnic church what I've realised is we need to plant churches swifter, simpler and smaller. Because often church planting in the past, some of the models have been a lot of money, a lot of resource, a lot of people. And we're saying, actually, as long as we're supporting in relationship, encouraging one another, we can do this quicker. We can begin to reach more people in a simpler way, but still having that relationship connection which is what we want to do right across the city and the region.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing your heart with us.
Thank you.
And hopefully lots of people will get behind that as well.